The sound of dripping water echoed in the cold stone hall. The prison was silent except for one voice, a soft, broken cry. In the darkest corner of the cell sat a young alien girl. Her silver hair was dirty, tangled, and her small hands were chained to the wall. Her big eyes were filled with tears that rolled down her cheeks and fell to the floor. She was nothing more than a prisoner, forgotten by all. The guards outside laughed whenever they heard her cry. They called her weak, useless, and broken. To them she was just a number, a thing to be sold at the next market. But inside her chest, her heart still beat with pain, with fear, and with a small spark of hope that someone, anyone, might notice her. On that night, when the moonlight slipped through the broken bars above, a human passed by the cell. He was not a soldier, not a master, not someone with power. He was just a traveler, a man with tired eyes and simple clothes. He stopped when he heard the sound. It was not the sound of anger, not the sound of rage. It was the sound of pure sorrow. The human walked closer, ignoring the guard's lazy warning. Through the iron bars he saw her, small, shaking, and crying with no strength left. For a moment he said nothing. His heart felt heavy, as if the pain inside that cell had reached into his own chest. "Why are you crying?" the human asked. His voice was calm, gentle, not like the cruel voices she was used to. The girl lifted her head slowly. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. She had forgotten what kindness sounded like. She only stared, confused, wondering if this was another trick. The guard laughed loudly. "She cries all day, human. Don't waste your breath. She's nothing but a broken thing." But the human did not laugh. He did not walk away. Instead, he crouched down, bringing his eyes level with hers. "You are not nothing," he whispered. His words slipped through the bars like a secret. The alien girl blinked. Her tears stopped for a moment. She was too shocked to believe in her life as a prisoner. No one had ever told her she was something. The human stayed there, watching her. The silence between them grew. But it was not empty. It was full of meaning, full of a strange connection she could not understand. She wanted to speak, to ask him why he cared, but her voice broke before words could come. The human reached into his pack and pulled out a small piece of bread. It was nothing fancy, just rough, hard bread. But to a starving prisoner, it looked like gold. He pushed it through the bars carefully. The girl looked at it with wide eyes. Her stomach ached, but her fear was stronger. Was this a trick? Would she be punished if she took it? The guard smirked. "She won't take it. She doesn't trust anyone, not after what's been done to her." But the human said softly, "Eat, it's yours, for a long time." She did not move. Then, slowly, carefully, her trembling fingers reached out. She touched the bread as if it might vanish. Finally, she pulled it close and bit into it. The taste was rough, dry, but to her it was the sweetest thing in years. As she ate, silent tears rolled down her face again. But these were different. They were not only tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of confusion, of something new growing inside her. The human smiled just a little. He did not ask for thanks. He did not ask for anything at all. He only watched to make sure she was safe while eating. When she finished, she looked at him again. This time her eyes were not only full of fear, they carried a small, fragile spark of trust. The guard shook his head and muttered, "Foolish human. She is not worth your time," before walking away. The human leaned closer and whispered again, "You are not nothing. Remember that." The alien girl clutched the last crumbs in her hand as if they were treasure. She wanted to believe his words, but her broken past made it hard. Still, for the first time since she was captured, her tears slowed in that cold, dark prison. A single moment of kindness planted a seed. It was small, fragile, but alive. And neither the alien girl nor the human knew that this single night would change both their lives forever. Because from that moment, the crying prisoner was no longer just a prisoner. She was someone seen, someone cared for, and soon, she would become something more. Family. The night outside the prison was colder than usual. A thin wind carried dust through the empty streets. But inside the human's heart, there was a storm much stronger. He could not stop thinking about the girl in chains. Her face stayed in his mind, the tears, the shaking hands, the way she looked at the bread as if it was the most precious gift in the world. He had seen many cruel things in his life, but her broken eyes had cut deeper than any blade. He sat in a small inn that night staring at the table. The other travelers around him laughed, drank, and traded stories, but his mind was far away, trapped back in that cold cell. She is just a prisoner. one man said when he heard the human ask about her. Forget her. She will be sold at the next market. That's how it works here, another chuckled. Don't risk your life for a stranger. She's not even your kind. What is she to you? The human did not answer. But deep inside he felt something pulling. It was not reason, not logic, it was simple humanity. He could not walk away from suffering he had seen with his own eyes. That night he lay awake, staring at the ceiling. His mind argued with itself. It's dangerous, one thought whispered. You'll get killed if you try to help her. But another voice inside him said louder, if you do nothing, you'll never forgive yourself. By dawn, the human had made his decision. He could not save the whole world, but maybe he could save one life. He went back to the prison. The guards were lazy, leaning on spears, laughing about bets. When they saw him return, they smirked. You again? One asked. Did you fall in love with the crying thing inside? The human ignored the insult. He walked to the bars. His eyes met the girl's once more. She was curled in the corner, weaker than yesterday. Her chains rattled softly when she looked up. The human whispered, I will not leave you here. The girl's lips parted in shock. Her heart pounded. No one had ever said such words to her. She shook her head slowly, as if to warn him. They will kill you, her eyes seemed to say, but the human only gave a small, steady smile. The guards burst into laughter. If you want her, pay the price at the auction, otherwise, get lost. The human stepped back, but his decision did not fade. He had no wealth, no soldiers, no power. Yet he carried something stronger. Will, that evening, he returned to the inn and gathered supplies, a rope, a small knife, a flask of water, and bread. To others, these were nothing, but to him, they were weapons of survival. As the sun set, he prepared his plan. His hands trembled not from fear, but from the weight of choice. Once he did this, there would be no turning back. The alien girl inside her cell pressed her forehead to the wall. She thought about the strange human. Why did he return? Why did he speak words of comfort instead of cruelty? Deep in her heart, a question formed, a dangerous, fragile question. Could he really mean to save her? That night, when the guards grew drunk and careless, the human returned again, this time not as a visitor, but as someone who had chosen his path. He crouched in the shadows outside the cell. His heart raced, every sound of boots made his pulse jump, but he moved carefully, silently, until he reached the door through the bars. The girl gasped when she saw him. Her eyes widened with fear and hope mixed together. Quiet, he whispered. I came for you. Her chains rattled softly as she shook her head. No, it's impossible, she mouthed. But the human slipped his knife into the lock. The metal groaned, sparks flicked, then finally the lock snapped open. The sound echoed and the girl's breath caught. She stared at him, her voice barely a whisper. Why? Why would you risk this? The human looked at her, his face calm though his heart was loud inside. Because no one deserves to be left in chains. Not you, not anyone, her throat tightened. Her tears fell again, but this time they were not only from sadness. Something inside her chest shifted. Something she thought had died long ago. Hope. The human reached for her hand. His touch was firm, steady, warm. She hesitated, then slowly let him pull her up. Her legs were weak, but his arm supported her. In that moment, a silent vow was made. He would carry her burden, even if it cost him his life. Behind them, the prison still reeked of cruelty. Ahead of them waited danger, hunters, and punishment. But for the first time, the girl was not alone. The human had made his decision, and it would change everything. The night sky above the prison was black, heavy with clouds that swallowed the moon. The torches on the walls burned weakly, their light flickering against the stone. It was the kind of night made for secrets. The human held the alien girl's hand as they slipped out of the cell. Her chain still hung loose from her wrists, the cold metal biting her skin. Her legs trembled with every step, but she forced herself forward, trusting the warmth of his hand guiding her. Every sound felt louder in the silence, the creak of old wood, the drip of water, the rustle of footsteps. The human pressed his finger to his lips, urging her to stay quiet. His heart pounded like thunder, but his face stayed calm. They moved through the narrow passage. Hugging the walls ahead, two guards leaned on their spears, drunk, their laughter echoing in the corridor. The smell of ale clung to the air. The human stopped, pulling the girl into the shadows of a broken archway. Her breath came fast, sharp, as fear crawled up her chest. If they were caught now, the punishment would be death. The guards argued about coins, slapping each other's backs, too busy laughing to notice the two shadows that slipped past behind them. The human led her carefully, every step timed with the sound of laughter, until the danger faded behind them. The girl's eyes widened with disbelief. She had thought escape was impossible, but every step outside her cell felt like a dream. For years she had seen only stone walls, and now she was walking free, even if danger was everywhere. When they reached the outer gate, the human stopped. The heavy wooden door was locked, a chain twisted tight across it. A single guard sat there, his head drooping, fighting sleep. The human whispered, "Stay behind me." His voice was steady, but inside he knew the risk. He crouched low, picked up a small stone, and tossed it toward the far corner. The stone clattered against the wall. The guard snapped his head up, muttering, and stumbled away to check the sound. In that heartbeat, the human pulled the girl forward. His knife slipped into the chain's knot. Twisting hard, the metal groaned but did not break. Sweat slid down his temple. Every second was a hammer against his nerves. The girl touched his arm, whispering, "They will see us." Her voice shook, but there was something else in it too. Concern for him. With one final push, the chain gave way, snapping open with a sharp clang. The sound echoed. The guard spun around, eyes wide. "Hey!" he shouted. The human shoved the door open and pulled the girl through. They ran into the cold night air, the sound of alarms bursting behind them. Torches lit up, shouts echoed, boots thundered. The girl stumbled, her legs too weak, and almost fell. The human caught her, lifting her into his arms without slowing down. She gasped, shocked at his strength. "Hold on," he said, running into the darkness behind them. Horns blared through the prison walls. More guards rushed out, chasing them into the maze of narrow streets. The city at night was dangerous, twisting alleys, broken rooftops, shadows hiding both safety and traps. The human knew he had only moments before the whole city was awake and hunting. He ducked into an alley, pressed against the wall, listening. The girl's chest rose and fell quickly against him. Her eyes darted around, her chains rattling softly. She whispered, "Why do this for me? You don't even know me." The human looked at her, his breathing heavy but steady. "Because no one should be left crying in the dark. You deserve more." Her throat tightened at his words. Her eyes burned with tears again, not from fear this time, but from something she didn't have a name for. The sound of boots grew louder. Guards shouted orders. The human took her hand again, pulling her deeper into the shadows. They crossed through a broken market square, overturned stalls casting long shadows. A pack of hunters passed nearby, their torches glowing like fireflies. The human pressed her down behind a cart, covering her mouth gently when fear made her breath too loud. The guards moved on, their voices fading into the distance. The girl trembled, but she no longer felt alone. The human's presence was like a shield. When the danger passed, they rose again, moving quickly. The city's outer wall was ahead, tall and cruel, but beyond it lay the open world, and freedom. The human searched for a way. His eyes caught a section of crumbling stone. Old and cracked, it was climbable, though risky. He pointed. "There." The girl shook her head, fear flashing. I can't." Her body was too weak, her arms trembling with every movement. The human crouched, offering his back. "Then climb on. I'll carry you." Her heart raced. "You'll fall." "I won't," he said. His voice left no space for doubt. Slowly, she wrapped her arms around his shoulders. Her chains clinked against his chest. Her face pressed into his back. She closed her eyes, trusting him step by step. The human climbed. His muscles burned. His breath grew harsh, but he never stopped. Every stone, every pull upward was a promise. He would not let her fall. At the top, he pulled her over the edge, and they dropped into the grass outside the city. The night air smelled of earth. Free and wide for the first time in years, the alien girl was beyond the prison walls. She looked up at the stars above, tears sliding down her face again. But now they were different, tears of freedom. Behind them, shouts still echoed. The hunt was not over. But for this one fragile moment, they had escaped. And in that silence under the stars, the human whispered, "We're not safe yet, but we're free, and as long as I breathe, I'll keep you free." The girl clutched his sleeve tightly. Her heart knew one truth now. He was no longer just a stranger. He was her only light in the shadows. The grass outside the city walls was wet with night dew. The air smelled of soil and smoke behind them. Horns still howled from the prison towers. The guards were searching, their torches glowing like angry stars in the distance. The human did not stop. He carried the alien girl on his back, her arms weak around his shoulders, her chains clinked softly with every step. His legs ached, his chest burned, but he moved forward with steady strength. The girl whispered, her voice barely a breath. They will catch us." The human shook his head, his eyes fixed on the dark hills ahead. "Not tonight," he said. His tone was simple, calm, but behind it was unshakable will. They crossed fields, then slipped into a forest where shadows covered them like a blanket. The moon broke through clouds, painting silver across the leaves. Every rustle of branches made the girl shiver. Every howl of a distant beast made her clutch tighter at his shirt. Hours passed, and when at last the human lowered her gently beside a tree, her legs could barely hold her. She sank to the ground. Breathing hard, her skin was pale, her eyes half closed. "You need rest," the human said. He knelt, pulling a flask from his pack. Pressing it into her hands, the girl stared at it, then at him. Her voice cracked. Why are you doing this? "I'm not your kind, I'm nothing." The human cut her words with a steady look. "You are not nothing, and you are not alone anymore." Her throat tightened. She took a sip, the cool water easing her dry mouth. For a moment she felt something strange, safe, but safety was a fragile thing. And danger was never far in the distance. The sound of horns returned, louder this time. The hunters were spreading through the land. The human stood, scanning the forest. "We move." The girl tried to rise, but her knees buckled. She clenched her teeth in shame. "I'm slowing you down," she whispered. Without hesitation, he lifted her again, her chains cold against his arm, but he carried her as if she weighed nothing. His steps pressed deeper into the mud, but his pace never slowed. Through forests, across rivers, over sharp rocks, he carried her step by step. His breath grew heavy, but his grip never loosened. When they reached a wide plain, the horizon glowed with the first colors of dawn. Orange and pink stretched across the sky for the girl. It was the first sunrise she had seen in years. She stared with wide eyes, the tears on her cheeks shining in the light. "It's beautiful," she whispered, her voice trembled with awe. The human glanced at her and gave a small nod. "It means we survived the night." But their journey was far from over. They found shelter in the ruins of an old stone house half buried in vines. Inside, the human built a small fire, its light flickering against the broken walls. He shared the last piece of bread with her, keeping only a small bite for himself. The girl held the bread carefully, staring at him. "Why do you always give me more?" He shrugged, chewing his small piece slowly. "Because you need it more than I do." Her hands trembled, not from hunger now, but from something else, a warmth she didn't know how to name. As the fire crackled, the girl leaned against the wall, exhaustion pulling her eyes closed. She dreamed of her past, her parents, the raid, the chains, the endless cries. But this time her dream shifted, and she saw the human's face, the calm strength in his eyes, the way he carried her when she woke. She found him still awake, sitting by the fire, his hand on the hilt of his knife, watching the shadows for danger. "You didn't sleep," she said softly. He smiled faintly. Someone had to keep watch. Her heart ached with something new. She had been guarded before, but never like this. Not with care, not with sacrifice. The days stretched into nights, and nights into days. Their path was long, but they walked it together. Whenever she faltered, he carried her. Whenever she despaired, he reminded her. "We are not done yet." Slowly her strength began to return. The weakness in her steps turned into slow but steady walking. The hopeless silence in her voice turned into small whispers, sometimes even questions. One night, as stars burned above them, she asked, "What will happen when we are caught?" The human looked at her, his expression hard but gentle. "Then I'll fight, and if I fall, I'll fall standing between you and them." Her breath caught. Her chest tightened. No one had ever spoken like that for her. Not even family. In the shadows of that endless road, something was changing. The crying prisoner was slowly becoming more than a burden. She was becoming someone who mattered, and the human who carried her was no longer just a stranger. He was something closer to family. But the long road to freedom was not only about distance, it was about the battles inside their hearts. His battle to protect, hers to believe she was worth protecting. And though the hunters still searched, though danger pressed at their heels, together they moved forward step by step, because freedom was no longer just a dream in the distance. It was something they were already building. together. The fire burned low in the ruins of the old house. Its glow painted the cracked stones orange. The human sat near the flames, sharpening his small knife, his eyes scanning the shadows, always alert, always ready. The alien girl sat across from him, her thin arms wrapped around her knees. Her chain still hung loose, though weaker now. Her eyes reflected the fire, but her mind was far away, trapped in memories. For days she had followed him in silence, speaking only a few words, eating when he gave food, resting when he told her to. But something inside her grew heavy. Pressing against her chest, she could not keep it inside anymore. She looked at him quietly. His face was calm, but his eyes carried a weight she could feel. He was not only carrying her on this journey, he was carrying something of his own. "Why do you care for me?" she asked at last. Her voice was soft, almost afraid of the answer. The human stopped sharpening his blade. He looked up, meeting her gaze. His voice was steady. "Because no one cared for you when they should have." Her lips trembled. She lowered her eyes. The fire crackled between them, and finally, the words she had buried for years began to escape. "I had a family once," she whispered, her voice cracked. Her fingers dug into her knees as the pain rose. "My mother had silver hair like mine. My father was strong. He told me we would always be safe." Until the raid, the human stayed silent. Listening, his eyes never left her. "They came at night," she said, her breath shaking. "Ships in the sky, lights that burned the fields, screams everywhere. I remember my father fighting, my mother holding me, telling me to run." Her voice broke into sobs. "But I didn't get far. They caught me, they dragged me away, and when I looked back..." Her chest heaved as tears fell. "I never saw them again." The firelight flickered over her face as she covered it with her hands. Her body shook with years of grief pouring out. The human's hand tightened on his knife, not from anger at her words, but at the injustice of them. He breathed slowly, steady, giving her space. "They sold me," she continued after a moment, her voice bitter, broken. "From one cage to another. Always crying, always alone. People looked at me like I was less than dirt. They told me I was nothing. Until I started to believe it." Her words hung heavy in the night air. Her tears dripped onto the dusty floor. The human leaned forward, his voice low, firm. "You are not nothing." Her eyes lifted, wet and wide, as if searching his face for any doubt. But there was none. His expression carried only truth, only strength. She shook her head, whispering, "But I was too weak to fight, too small to escape, too broken to matter." He cut her words again, sharper this time. "No, you survived. That takes more strength than they will ever know. You are still here. And that means you are stronger than all of them." Her breath caught. Her chest tightened at his words. Something inside her heart shifted, trembling like a fragile flame trying to grow. The silence between them stretched, filled only by the sound of the fire and the distant call of night creatures. Then slowly she reached out her hand. Her chain rattled softly as her fingers brushed the floor, stopping halfway as if afraid he would reject it. The human looked at her trembling hand, then placed his own over it, firm and steady. His warmth spread into her skin, and for the first time in years, her hand did not feel cold. Her voice shook. "I don't know how to be anything anymore." "Then learn," he said simply. His thumb brushed against her knuckles. "Learn with me, step by step." Her tears fell again, but this time softer. They were not only tears of pain. They carried something else, relief. The fire died lower, shadows dancing on the walls. The girl leaned against the stone, her eyes closing. For the first time since her capture, she fell asleep not with fear but with the faint comfort of safety. The human stayed awake, his hand still near hers, his eyes scanning the dark but his mind repeating her story. The raid, the loss, the endless cruelty. It burned inside him, a quiet fury, a vow that no one would ever chain her again. As dawn touched the sky with pale light, the girl stirred. Her eyes opened slowly. Her chains glinted in the morning glow. She looked at him, sitting guard with tired eyes but a strong presence. And for the first time, a fragile smile touched her lips. It was small, weak, almost broken, but real. The human saw it. And in his chest something eased. Her past was broken, full of pain and loss. But here, on this long road, a new chapter had begun. One where she was no longer only a crying prisoner. One where she was no longer alone. The forest was quiet that evening. Too quiet. The wind carried no birdsong, no rustle of animals, only the heavy silence of danger. The human noticed first, his steps slowed. his eyes scanning the trees. His hand rested on the hilt of his knife. His instincts told him the hunters were near. The alien girl followed close. Her chains lighter now after he had broken some links. Her strength had grown in the past days, but her heart still carried fear. She saw his tense posture and whispered, "They found us." He nodded once, his jaw tightened. Yes, before she could speak again. Shadows moved between the trees. Torches flared, boots crushed leaves. The hunters had come, more than a dozen. Their armor clinking as they spread in a circle. The girl froze, her breath sharp. She had seen these men before, the ones who dragged her in chains, their cruel eyes shining with greed. One of them laughed when he saw her. The crying prisoner. Still alive and guarded by a human? How pathetic, the circle tightened. Weapons gleaming. The human stepped forward, placing himself between the girl and the hunters. His stance was firm, his knife small compared to their blades, yet his eyes carried no fear. "She's not yours," he said. His voice cut through the night, strong and clear. The leader of the hunters sneered, "And you think you can stop us? One man against all of us?" The human didn't move, his shoulders straightened. "If that's what it takes," the girl's heart pounded. She clutched his sleeve, whispering, "You can't fight them all. They'll kill you." He glanced back at her, his eyes steady. "Then I'll fall fighting. But I won't let them take you again." Her breath caught, her tears burned, but inside her chest, something else rose, a fire she hadn't felt before. The hunters rushed, blades flashing. The human met the first with speed, ducking low. His knife struck true into the man's side. He twisted, disarmed him, and shoved him to the ground. Another came from behind. He turned, blocking with his arm, the blade cutting across his sleeve but missing flesh. His counterstrike was sharp, fast, pushing the attacker back. But more came, circling, surrounding. His chest rose and fell hard. His arms ached, yet he stood firm. The girl watched, fear clawing her throat. She wanted to scream, to run, but her body refused. Then she remembered his words by the fire. "You survived, you are stronger than you know." Her chains rattled as she looked down at the broken links. A piece of sharp metal glinted where the chain had snapped. She picked it up, her hands shaking. Her heart screamed at her to move. When one hunter lunged at the human's back, she stepped forward. Her hands struck out with the sharp chain piece, driving it into the man's arm. He cried out, dropping his weapon. The human turned in surprise, seeing her standing there, trembling but defiant. "I'm not nothing," she whispered. Her voice shaking but strong. Pride flashed in his eyes, even as another attacker came forward. Together they fought, he with his knife, she with her chain. Each strike fueled not by strength alone, but by desperation, by courage. The battle raged in the forest, shadows dancing with firelight. One by one, the hunters fell, some wounded, some fleeing into the night. The human bled from cuts across his arms, but he did not stop. His eyes burned with determination. At last, only the leader remained, his blade pressed against the human's knife. Sparks flying, their faces inches apart. "You'll die for her," the leader growled. The human pushed back, his muscles straining. "Better that than live like you." With one final thrust, he knocked the blade aside and struck. The leader stumbled, bloodied. Before falling into the dirt, the forest fell silent again. Only the crackle of torches and the ragged sound of their breaths filled the air. The girl dropped the chain piece, her hands shaking, her knees buckled. But the human caught her, lowering her gently. "You fought," he said softly, his voice filled with pride. "You found your strength." Her eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "Because of you, because you believed in me." He wiped the blood from his brow, his chest heaving. His knife slipped back into its sheath. "No, because it was always inside you." She leaned against him, trembling but alive. The broken prisoner who once cried in silence had stood against her captors, and together they had won. The night sky stretched above them, endless and full of stars for the first time. The girl looked at it not with despair, but with hope. They were scarred, they were hunted, but they were free, and freedom, they realized, was worth every fight. The forest smelled of smoke and blood. The ground was littered with broken weapons and torches that slowly died in the dirt. The human leaned against a tree, his arm bleeding from deep cuts. His chest rose and fell heavy, but his eyes stayed sharp. Beside him, the alien girl sat trembling, her small hands clutching his sleeve. Her chains still hung from her wrists, but now they looked different, not a mark of weakness, but of survival. She had used them to fight, and she had lived for a long time, neither spoke. The only sound was their breathing, ragged and uneven. Finally, the girl whispered, "You could have left me." "But you didn't. Why?" The human turned his head. His voice was rough but steady. "Because everyone deserves a chance at life, and because I couldn't stand to see you broken anymore." Her eyes filled with tears. She lowered her head, her voice trembling. "No one ever said that to me before. No one ever stayed." He reached out, placing his hand gently on her shoulder. His touch was firm, steady. "Then remember this. You are not alone, not anymore." The words sank deep into her heart. Her chest ached, but not from fear this time. It was something new, something warm. When dawn broke, the first light painted the forest gold. The human helped her to her feet. His arm was injured, but he still carried most of her weight as they walked. Step by step, they left the battlefield behind. Days passed as they traveled through valleys and across rivers. The world outside the prison was vast and strange to her. Every sunrise, every gust of wind, every star at night felt new. She often stopped to stare, her eyes wide like a child seeing the world for the first time. One evening, they found shelter in a quiet meadow. The grass swayed under the sky full of stars. The human built a small fire. Sharing their last bread, the girl sat close, watching him, her voice soft. "Do you ever regret it?" "Helping me?" He looked at her, shaking his head slowly. "Not once." She studied his face, tired but strong. She whispered, "Then, can I call you something?" He tilted his head, curious. "What do you mean?" Her lips trembled. "Family." "Can I call you family?" The human's eyes softened. His silence stretched for a moment. Then he gave a small, warm smile. "Yes, you can." Her tears spilled, but this time they were gentle. She leaned against him, her chains clinking softly. For the first time since her capture, she felt whole. The days that followed were not easy. They were hunted, hungry, and often cold. But the weight she carried in her heart grew lighter, because now every step was shared. Every danger was faced together. When she stumbled, he caught her. When he faltered, she held him. Slowly, their bond grew stronger than chains, stronger than fear. One night, as rain poured over the land, they found shelter under a broken roof. Thunder rolled across the sky. The girl curled close to him, whispering, "I used to think I was nothing, but with you I feel alive." He looked down at her, his arm wrapped around her shoulders. "You were always alive. I just reminded you." Her heart swelled. She knew then that no matter what hunted them, no matter what lay ahead, she was no longer just a crying prisoner. She was someone with a place, someone with a family. When the storm cleared, the world looked brighter. The air smelled of wet earth. The human stood tall despite his wounds, and the girl walked beside him, no longer dragged by fear. They left behind the chains of her past, but not the lessons. She carried scars. Yes, but also courage. He carried wounds, but also purpose, and together they stepped into the unknown. The road ahead was long, filled with danger and hardship, but in their hearts, a truth burned stronger than any fear. They were no longer strangers. They were family. The girl looked at him, her voice steady now. "Thank you for giving me back my life." The human smiled faintly. "No, you gave it back yourself. I just walked beside you." She held onto his arm, her steps sure for the first time. She didn't feel weak or broken. She felt seen. She felt loved. The horizon stretched wide before them. Golden in the light of a new day, the crying prisoner was gone. In her place stood someone free, someone alive, and by her side walked the human who had given her more than freedom. He had given her a family. Together they walked forward, never looking back.